What's going on, YouTube? And welcome back here to another magical day here in the MC Parks Minecraft Walt Disney World server. Today we are back in what that sign says under me, the Magic Kingdom. We are back in the Magic Kingdom today, and we're going to be taking a look at the history of an attraction that no longer exists. What was that? We're going to take a look at the history of two extinct attractions. Why not do one extinct attraction when you can do two? We're going to make this into a two-part video. And today we're going to be looking at... That kind of looks like me. That kind of looks like the Diamond Line, doesn't it? Do you see any similarities there? It looks a little similar, right? Maybe a little bit. Anyway, back to the video. Today we're going to be heading into Tomorrowland, which is my favorite land in all of the Magic Kingdom. And this is going to go into, like I said, it's a two-part episode because we're going to be looking at the extinct attraction that's right at the front of Tomorrowland. And that attraction to start the day is Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter. And I would argue, and I think most people would argue, that this is the scariest attraction in all of Disney history. And the irony in that is this is probably the closest attraction, maybe one of the Fantasy Dark rides, the Fantasyland Dark rides. Technically, the opening gate might be closer, but look how close this is to the castle. This attraction is in earshot of the castle to Walt Disney World, and this was the scariest attraction in all of Disney park history. Now, to give you some context, we're going to go back to the 80s, right? Michael Eisner comes in. He's the new CEO. He's the new boss along with Frank Wells. Give him his credit. And they wanted to add more attractions that were themed to adolescents and teenagers and young adults. And the reason for that was because Michael Eisner's son went to the parks and he said, "This is kind of kiddish. Like, there's not enough stuff for me to do, Dad." And that's where it started. And that's when we started to see attractions like Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, and of course attractions like Alien Encounter. And you kind of look at the time frame for all of those, right? You know, the early 90s for Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, and similar time frame was also when Alien Encounter opened in the Magic Kingdom. And Alien Encounter was an attraction. It started to have soft openings in December of 1994. December 16th was the first soft opening for this attraction. And this attraction was actually housed in this building that we're looking at right now. That is where this attraction used to be shown. And the entrance used to be right here, and that's obviously all boarded up now. And this attraction, right from previews, people were not thrilled, to say the least, with this attraction. And Disney ended up taking a lot of time after the soft opening to rework a lot of things, because the biggest complaint with this attraction, even in the soft openings, even after, before it ever even opened, Disney was warned, this is a scary attraction. And when you can literally see Cinderella's castle from the main building, that is definitely a quite a stretch in terms of a different direction for what Disney kind of normally would do for their attractions, right? You're used to, Dumbo and the Flying Elephants, or, Buzz Lightyear's Blasters, or Fantasyland Dark Ride, or, Winnie the Pooh, things like that. And then you consider that's in the same park as something like this, people weren't necessarily ready for it. So they did a lot of work with the pre-show. They did a lot of things to kind of change how people would... They were trying to filter people out before they got into the main show of the building. And the reason that they wanted to do that is they didn't want to have a ton of kids crying, in the attraction when it was actually going on. They wanted to have fair warnings. They had signage all over the front of the attraction. warning, this is a very scary attraction. You know, have your children ride with caution. There was plenty of warning signs. And if the name extraterrestrial alien encounter wasn't enough for you, they did have other ways of letting you kind of know in a pretty very non-discreet way. And one of the ways they did that was obviously all the signage on the front. But even if they got into the main building, even if they got into the queue area and into the loading into this area, there's another room that would take you to a couple of animatronics. And the animatronics were Skippy, you had whatever his name is, the agent or the robot. And it was really dark. And they were kind of explaining the way that Disney, or the way that XS Tech, right? This company, XS Tech, was going to use teleportation. And it definitely looked a little bit sketchy, a little bit shady, and they definitely had their own motives for why they wanted to do this. And during the pre-show, you see Skippy, he's all scared, and this robot's kind of like, oh, very much, very brash with Skippy, and very kind of nasty, and kind of treating him horribly. To kind of continue to drive home the point, like, this is a different vibe of an attraction. And then they continue, if that wasn't enough for you, and they try to teleport Skippy. So they try to teleport Skippy. Skippy's like, no, please don't do it, don't do it. You could tell the horror in his face. And they try to teleport him. And he goes into the chamber across the room, and you could hear the excruciating torture and the cries of Skippy as he's being broken down into tiny little particles to teleport. And when you see him in the other chamber, kind of like he got baked in an oven, he literally got baked in the oven. And he is burnt to a crisp on the other side. And you could see kind of this really nasty, maniacal laugh from the robot that was showing off this XS Tech technology to us. It was a really dark attraction. Like, there is no sugarcoating that this was an attraction that if you were going to be taking this on, you were taking on a different vibe of attraction than what you might have been used to. So the official opening date for this attraction, and like I said, with the soft opening in December of 1994, this attraction didn't fully open as an opening date attraction until June 20th of 1995. So basically, like 7 months before the attraction officially opened. They did some reworking and things like that. And this was all part of the new Tomorrowland experience. And this attraction was an 18-minute show, and there was a lot going on in this attraction. Obviously you had the whole alien encounter experience of the attraction, which encapsulates, pretty much the alien getting loose and breaking stuff and attacking and terrorizing the guests, and the whole story around XS Tech. Like, it was a really deep attraction. There was a lot of underlying storyline to it, and it had a lot of depth to it. And that's why a lot of the people that were old enough to really appreciate it really enjoyed it. But it got that reputation of being a scary attraction, and when it's in the kind of the friendliest park of all in the Magic Kingdom, its popularity waned pretty quickly. And we found out pretty quickly that this was an attraction that it wasn't meant for this area or this park. And there was a lot of talk about Stitch, which had recently come to theaters in 2002. Disney made a pretty quick and swift move in October of 2003 to close Alien Encounter. It closed forever, and they used a lot of the similar animatronics in the pre-show and the similar kind of the teleportation tube to make Stitch, and Skippy was in it. Like, a lot of similarities between the two attractions. And this kind of leads us to the second portion of our video, and that's going to take us to kind of the Stitch side of the equation. And that obviously starts with the movie. It did well. It did fairly well. And Michael Eisner saw this blue, furry, cute-looking alien as the next big plushie that was going to sell, and he was right. Stitch was on all of the merchandise, not only around Walt Disney World, all of the Disney parks had Stitch. Stitch was the thing. And that's why we're kind of staying over here by Merchant of Venus, because actually in the walls of this area, they used to have a giant Stitch head, or I guess his whole upper torso, kind of up in the rafters, breaking through the ceiling. This was the Merchant of Venus, was the Stitch shop. All things Stitch, Stitch plushes all over the place, all throughout this area. And these doors were actually the exit to Stitch's Great Escape. So you've got this area here. Obviously the theme definitely changed, but I can tell you, as a kid, I went on a Disney cruise, and the first night before we went on the cruise, we went to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party. And continue along with me, hold on. And I was about 8 years old. We went on to Stitch's Great Escape. It can't be scary. It's not a scary attraction. I cried. As an 8-year-old, I cried on Stitch's Great Escape. And I think because I definitely did not like the dark. I didn't like scary at all. I got scared on the Jungle Cruise. I was that kind of kid when I was younger. So when I went on this attraction, it pretty much terrified me. And I felt embarrassed because at that age I was like 8. I didn't, it wasn't cool to cry off of an attraction, right? But it was a scary attraction for someone like me that was definitely more sensitive to kind of the dark and creatures crawling around you and kind of slobbering and, chili dog burping on your face and things like that. A lot of people really didn't like that version of the attraction. And that actually opened in 2004, and it was fall of 2004 when Stitch's Great Escape opened. And this was an attraction that, unfortunately, it wasn't the right attraction, right? Because they had neutered a lot of the scarier, sinister aspects of Alien Encounter. They kept the teleportation thing. I love the way it seamlessly went into the beginning of Lilo and Stitch, the movie. The whole beginning is how Stitch escaped the teleportation and the facility that had created 626, which is the alien that is Stitch. That whole area, that was the beginning of the movie, and it perfectly fit into what they were creating here. They threw a couple Kuka arms in to make it look like from the movie. They had the whole scene with Stitch spitting on the robots and spitting on the guests, all that stuff, right? And this was kind of another, guests were not satisfied with this attraction either, because now the hardcore, the Alien Encounter fans weren't happy because this is a neutered version of what they had, and yet you had the people that you were trying to appease, right, that were the younger kids, and they were still coming out of the theater crying and scared. So the clear definition of, when you try to appease everybody, you appease nobody. That is what happened with this attraction. And unfortunately, this attraction really was not popular. And then you consider the background of this attraction. Before it opened, they actually made a StitchEscape.com website where you could play with Stitch going around Walt Disney World, specifically Magic Kingdom, and kind of looking for pieces of the teleportation chamber in a website game. Like Disney really went above and beyond before, kind of in the promotion process of this attraction. It also went so far as they had a giant inflatable Stitch where the Mickey floral is in the front of the park. And of course, the most famous thing they did, they TP'd Cinderella Castle. They had toilet paper all over the towers. Yeah, all over the turrets of not Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella Castle. There was toilet paper, and there was a little fake graffiti facade sign that said Stitch is King. They were really marketing this attraction. And that first year, it did pretty well. But after that, it never got that popularity again. And usually the wait times are anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes, which basically, like any show that's similar to this, it's just the next show that was going to be playing. That's really how long the wait was. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely was an interesting attraction. As I got older, I grew up, I would go back, and I definitely appreciated the attraction more as I got older. But I mean, as a kid, a sensitive kid, it was a scary ride. Even though it was Stitch, even though you knew what was going on, and it was still a scary attraction. And in 2016, we had finally gotten more information that this attraction was really it started going into seasonal operation. And usually when attractions go into seasonal operation, we saw that for attractions like the Backlot Tour. Um, a really good example not far from here, Submarine Voyage. Once they go into seasonal operation, usually that's the last toll before it expires. And that's exactly what happened here. There's a lot of kind of going now into the next phase of this, which is kind of where it kind of finished up, and we started to see some little changes, like the signage out front. Instead of saying Stitch's Great Escape, it said Stitch's Alien Encounter Meet and Greet, where you can meet Stitch in the kind of the foyer of this theater area in this building. You can meet him for the Christmas party, the Halloween party, dressed as Elvis. During the day, he was dressed up, right, as his regular self. You could meet Stitch. And then obviously the pandemic happened, the parks closed, and we started to find out there were some urban explorers going back there, and you could find some of the animatronics that were shredded. The robot attraction that was kind of the officer in the first scene in the queue, he was shredded up, and it looked like he had an iPhone charger attached to him. You can find those pictures online. Skippy basically furless, and of course the nail in the coffin, which was the Stitch, one of the two Stitch animatronics. Because you have to remember, this theater has two separate theaters in this building. So there's one going, and then the other one's loading. And when the other attraction's loading, the other one is in play. And that's the way they kind of kept up the capacity. So anyway, now we started to find from these urban explorers that this attraction was done. Like, there's no way there was a glimmer of hope that maybe they were reskinning them and they were just in maintenance, but the reality is people kind of knew that was probably it for Stitch. And they were right. We had an official closing of Stitch's Great Escape. The attraction had officially closed and would never open to the public again. And we had those couple years of the Alien Encounter meet and greet with Stitch inside the building. And today we are told that it is now, kind of flow over cast member break space. Which I think the reason they say that is because they don't want people kind of venturing in here. And if there's the threat that there's cast members, eating their Subway, in one of the theaters, maybe that'll deter people from wanting to go in there, right? So that's what Disney ended up doing. There was a lot of questions about what would maybe come next. There was a lot of rumors in 2020, 2021 that maybe we could see a Wreck-It Ralph 3D or 2D attraction coming to this area. It never materialized. And that was pretty much it. That's the last we've heard of anything of substance really coming to this area. It's hard because there's a lot of things to consider in terms of the future of this area. So the first thing, it's two small theaters next to each other, right? And we talked about that earlier. So you have the main foyer area, which is the entrance. You walk into here, and then kind of the two show building aspects, the theaters, are further back, right? So there's really not enough space to make a full-on dark ride. That's the first problem. The second problem is, if you look at the overhead of this building, and actually you can see, right, this is the theater building here. Well, if you take a look right here, I know I'm not supposed to be doing this, but if you're able to notice what this building is, this is Cosmic Rays Starlight Cafe. Now, these are from rumors that I've heard in the past. if Disney is to completely gut Stitch's Great Escape and take out all of the contents inside, because this building is connected with cosmic rays, the Merchant of Venus, all the other side of this building, everything will have to get demoed. So the theater here, the Merchant of Venus shop, and then of course cosmic rays, all have to be taken out if Disney really wants to go big with this. Oh, and Mickey Star Traders, right? This is Mickey Star Traders. Yeah. So you got Mickey Star Traders here and Cosmic Rays. This is all one gigantic building. So is Disney ready to close 2 shops, a giant quick service meal with Sunny Eclipse, and Stitch's Great Escape? Because the reality is, that's probably what they're going to have to do if they are if they're going to mess with Stitch. It's probably going to involve everything else. And I think one day it will happen. And maybe not too far away, maybe closer than you think. Because you have to think about this real estate. Like, this is prime real estate in the Magic Kingdom. You have this entire area right here. You have this attraction open. You have a Monsters Inc. land that's opening in Hollywood Studios in probably 2028, 2027-ish, somewhere around there. 2028, probably. Monsters Inc. Laugh Floor, that can go. Buzz Lightyear Space Ranger Spin, you already have a kind of shooter attraction in Toy Story Land in Hollywood Studios. You have a vacant, this used to be a theater back here. So you have a theater that's sitting empty. I think it's like the Space Theater or something like that. I don't know if they actually have it built in here. Oh, they don't. But this is actual true to scale. Like, this is an open plot of land here. This is all empty space right in prime real estate in the Magic Kingdom in Tomorrowland. And the problem is Disney's going to have a dilemma with Tomorrowland. Because what can we do with Tomorrowland? Like, what IPs could fit in this area, right? Like, looking today, what would go in here? Like, maybe Big Hero 6, Incredibles, maybe one of the Marvel characters. I know it's difficult, but, like, I could see an Iron Man attraction here. Not that they have the licensure to do it, but, like, that's kind of the vibe I'd be getting, right? So, kind of taking this back home to Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter and Stitch's Great Escape, there is so much beyond Stitch's Great Escape and Alien Encounter in this area. So for whatever they want to do, honestly, as much as I like this main entrance area, it really does work. But the way these buildings are kind of constructed and built, I would not be opposed to them knocking down everything and starting from scratch. Now, I don't think Disney's going to do that, but I could see a world where they completely bulldoze the inside of this giant building and just redevelop this area and make it maybe a giant dark ride with a gift shop at the end, right? They could do something like that. And that way they have a lot more space to play with than just these 2 tiny theaters that were originally, that was all meant for Mission to Mars. Disney would really have to put a lot of investment in that. But you look at this area, I mean, how cool would it be to have a Tony Stark attraction here, or a Baymax attraction, or something, right? Like, you could really do a lot here. But Disney has to make some tough decisions, because you're going to lose a giant people eater quick service if you get rid of Cosmic Rays. And are you getting rid of Sunny Eclipse? The world will lose its mind if Disney gets rid of Sunny Eclipse, right? So those are all the different things Disney has to think about. And that is the history, the lead up to, the past, the not so distant present, and where we are today and the future. Like, there is a lot going on in this one building. And I I'd love to know what you guys think. Like, what are your ideas for this area? Because I'm torn. Like the idea of just gutting this entire thing, including cosmic rays, that's a tough thing to think about. And I don't know if I said this earlier, but the reason they have to do that is because of asbestos. Apparently, asbestos was built into this area, so if they open that up, they have to close everything down, right? That's kind of what the reason for closing everything together is the asbestos. So, I don't know. I'd love to know what you guys think. If you have any good ideas for maybe reworking the theaters, can you rework the theaters? Are you going to gut the theaters? Are you going to gut Merchant of Venus? Are you going to gut Mickey's Star Traders and just start over? What do you guys think? I'd love to know what's on your mind for this area, because there is a world of possibilities here. It's just a matter of what do we think Disney will actually do. So that's going to do it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a magical day.